So once in a while, I'll be playing a video game, as one does, and I will find something in that video game that I think is interesting and might be fun and worth talking about in something like a GameMaker video explaining how you can do it yourselves. Today, the effect in question can be found in Mario Kart Wii, and I suspect also in a bunch of other Nintendo games from that era, because when Nintendo comes up with a cool trick, they tend to like to use it. Anyway, so if you were to swing the camera around and look at the sun, you might notice something interesting about the sun, which is that one, it has a position, like an absolute position in the world, which means that if you move around, the sun will appear to hover above a certain point of the ground, which is funny. Not what we're looking at, but more importantly, if you go behind a building, you'll see that there's a little bit of a little fake lens flare that you can see as the sun goes behind the building. And this is a couple of things. This is interesting. It's a very subtle effect. And when you're zipping around at the speed of sound playing a racing game, you're probably not really going to spend a lot of time looking around to see stuff like this unless you're me when I was 15. Because God, I spent a lot of time doing that when I was a teenager. Anyway, this is like not at all realistic to how lens flares work in real life. This isn't even how lens flares are usually approximated in video games. Completely different. It's cheating to the, like, 6 Ways to Sunday. But the thing about cheating in game design is that it really doesn't matter as long as the end result comes out looking good. And I do think that for the purposes of a game that looks like this, for a game with the level of visual fidelity such as this, I think a fake lens flare of this nature does look pretty good for the amount of work that it is. And by the amount of work that it is, I mean that it can be probably done in about, I think, 10 lines of code is maybe what we're going to write in this video. So, this, by the way, if you're interested in what I'm flying around in right now, this is the greatest website on the internet. It is called noclip.website. And I say that not just because it has the TLD of .website, which I think is amazing, but also because it's a very interesting little, I think the creator likes to call it a museum of video game level design. You can open up a bunch of different games and, like, stroll around in various levels that can be found within and see how they're put together. Mario Kart Wii is on here. A bunch of Nintendo Mario and Zelda games from that era are on here, as well as some other stuff. So I'll have a link to NoClip in the description of the video if you want to have a poke around. There's a lot of fun stuff to be found in there. Anyway, what we are going to have by the end of the video is going to be something that looks a bit like that. And we're going to be able to walk around. We're going to be able to see the sun in the sky. We're going to be able to see a little fake lens flare that pops up when the sun goes behind something. Okay, so that's what we're going to have by the end of the video. Presently, in this video, we have a scene that's basically that, but without the sun, like this. And we're going to start with this. So before we get started, this is a pretty easy effect. There's only really two major bits of 3D in GameMaker that you're going to want to know about going in. One is going to be drawing billboarded sprites. I made a video on that a couple of years ago. And we're just going to be drawing a billboarded sprite to represent the sun, because that's all the sun is in Mario Kart Wii. We're also going to want to play around a little bit with turning off Z-test and Z-write. You can occasionally do some interesting things by turning on and off the depth buffer and enabling and disabling depth testing in 3D games, and this is going to be one of those things. I have also gone and made a video on that a couple of years ago. I'll have both of those things linked if you'd like to see them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the camera's draw event. Actually, before I start running any code, I've also gone and added the sun sprites from Mario Kart Wii to this project. Obviously, maybe don't use Nintendo's sun sprites in an actual game. Maybe use your own. But I do want what we see in this video to look at least something like what we saw in NoClip, so I'm going to be using them anyway. They're both the same size. They both have the sprite origin set to middle center, which is important when we're going to be drawing these billboarded, otherwise they'll rotate around weird points in space. The lens flare part of the sprite is a little bit skinnier than the main one. It doesn't have the halo in the middle, and also like the flare things are a little bit skinnier. It's also opaque on a black background. That doesn't really matter with the way that I'm going to end up drawing these, but if you want to make them not opaque, you can. I'm just not going to concern myself with that. Now we can go and write some code. So I'm going to go into the camera's draw event, and I'm going to first I'm going to draw the sun itself. And we can draw the sun itself by just, I think in my sample project I was drawing the sun at a fixed position in the world. And I was going to do that in this video, and then I decided that that honestly is kind of weird, so maybe let's not do that in this video. If you want to draw the sun at a fixed position in the world, it should be pretty easy to figure out how, but instead I'm going to say draw sprite billboard SPR sun image index 0, and we're going to want some kind of sun X position, sun Y, and sun Z. I'm going to define sun X as, and I'm trying to think of like which direction it would be relative to the camera. Let me think. So if X from, Y from, and Z from is the camera's position, so the camera's like origin position, we could say sun X equals X from plus like, I don't know, 400 or something like that, var sun Y equals Y from plus, say, 200 or something like that. And sun Z can be Z from plus, I think in the original version it was 500 units in the air. So this is going to draw the sun at a position relative to the camera, at this position relative to the camera. And we're going to be drawing the sprite billboarded over there. I have added a couple of additional arguments to the draw sprite billboard function, and that's going to be scale, color, and alpha. At least I don't think this was in my original draw sprite billboard function, but you can probably guess how they work. They're just going to use the like extended sprite drawing arguments for scale, color, and alpha. And that's just so that you can make the sun a little bit bigger or smaller if you would prefer. Let's see, anything else? Let's see how this looks in the game. So, the game is going to open on my other monitor because I changed my monitors around, and now Windows thinks the other one is the main one. But, where is... Alright, there it is. So the sun, it was fairly high in the air. I should probably not draw it quite that high in the air when it's going to be, like, you know, this close. Let's make this maybe, like, 400, 200, and 200 on the XY axes. And that is definitely a lot better. I do want the sun to be a little bit bigger than that, so we can go and blow that up by maybe, I don't know, 3 times or so. So let's make a little variable var sun scale equals 3. And we could also give it a color if we'd like. I think in my sample project I was using var sun color equals pound FFFFDD, which is going to be a mild yellow color like that. So sun scale, sun color, and we've now got ourselves a sun, which is being drawn in the world. Windows, stop opening this on my other screen. All right, very good. Sun is billboarded. If we turn the camera, it will continue to face us. If we chase it, it will be effectively infinitely far away because it is being drawn relative to the camera and not at a fixed position in the world. Alright, that's the easy part. So, we've gone and drawn the sun. Now let's think about the lens flare. There still is no lens flare in here. And if we want to accomplish a lens flare, we can say, go down to the bottom of the camera's draw event after everything in the world has been drawn. So after all the stuff has been drawn, the shader has been reset, whatever. And we can do it again, basically. We can say draw sprite billboard, but instead of using SPR underscore sun, we can say draw SPR underscore sun flare. And that is, we'll start with the same parameters. We'll see how things need to be changed after that. So, if I just do this, we'll note that there's a little bit of fuzzing going on. That is, in fact, good old-fashioned Z fighting, because we are drawing 2 planes in 3D space with depth testing on exactly on top of each other. And when they're in exactly the same location, floating point noise starts to exist, and we've got this lovely little diffraction pattern, like someone's doing a little double slit experiment to figure out if light is a particle or a wave or not. If I walk away, if I turn the camera in certain locations, it seems to be more or less intense. But we'd like to not have our 2 sun sprites fighting with each other like that. And this is where turning off the depth buffer is going to come in. So if we say GPU set Z test enable, we can set that to false before we draw our sun. We can also set GPU set Z right enable to false, and this will prevent our new billboard sprite from being written to the depth buffer, but that's not really important because it's going to come out to the same thing anyway. Turning off testing is the important part here. And now if I do this, we are going to have a sun sprite which is going to be not fighting. But we do have a slightly different problem now, which is that And this actually was happening before, but it wasn't something that was super easy to notice with the Z fighting. But the opaque part of our sun lens flare sprite is still being drawn, and we probably don't want it to be like that because this is kind of cutting a hole through whatever in the game world we might want the sun to like be behind. So the short answer to this is that this is because, you know, obviously this sprite has an opaque background instead of a transparent one. And the easy way to solve this problem would be to just cut out this opaque background and like use actual transparency here. But there's something a little bit different that I'd like to do with this later that will make that a non-issue, and it will, at least in my opinion, make this a little bit more of a flexible, slightly more visually interesting solution. And that is going to be, instead of using our regular blend mode, we can say GPU set blend mode bm_add, and we can draw. Oh, that's blend enable blend mode. We can use additive blending when we're drawing our little flare here, and we can reset that when we're done. I guess I probably should have mentioned at the beginning that you'll also want to at least know what additive blending is. Anyway, if I run the game now, and if the game pops up on the wrong monitor, we can swing it back over here, and we can see that we have our sun. If I walk in front of an object, we have our flare, and it is no longer like awkwardly cutting a hole in this tree or awkwardly cutting a hole in anything else here, and it's still very intense, and that's kind of a problem. There's a couple things we can do about that. One of them is to, instead of using our original sun color when we do this, we can use a slightly more muted blending color. I think in my sample project I was using #DDDDAA as our color, and that is going to be just a slightly darker yellow-orange, which is going to help. And it's also going to factor into the blending a little bit, because now instead of just a like straight whitish color, it is also going to sort of add in a vaguely orangish tint to whatever you see behind it because of the way that it blends, and it's still going to work on the white geometry just as well. It's invisible when there's nothing in between you and the sun, because when you add two colors together like that, when you add anything to one, it's still going to be white. When you add anything, rather, when you add any color to white, it's still going to be white. We can also, I think this is a little intense, so let's dial down the opacity of the transparency to like 50% or so, and that should make it a little more subtle when you go up against a tree or something like that. Yeah, that's much better. I think in Mario Kart Wii it might have been even like a little dimmer than this still, but that's most of the effect that we want to have here. Let's dial that down again to like 0.4 or something. All right. So that was pretty easy. Again, we only modified a couple lines of code to make this work. And for a stylized game, for a game that's not supposed to be like super photorealistic, this is probably good enough. If you want to take this a step further, and I'm not going to do this because this is going to involve some form of ray casting in 3D collisions in some capacity, you could make it so that when you go behind an object, when there's an object in between you and the sun, the flare fades away, and then when you come back, it comes back. I'm not going to do that here. To do something like that, you would most likely want to raycast in the direction that like the sun exists from the camera, and you would want to check if there's anything in the world in between you and the sun, and if there is, you would want to not draw it. If there isn't, you would want to draw it, and that would have the effect of like when you go behind a tree, it'll show a little flare like this, but if it's completely behind, it won't. You can follow that rabbit hole as far as you like, but I am not going to introduce 3D collisions into this or any other sort of hit scan approximations. Maybe we can do that another day. So one thing to watch out for this, and most of you are probably already doing this, but if you're probably setting up Z test enable and Z write enable at the beginning of the frame, and that will enable the depth buffer. But if you don't, like, let's just say that if you just turn on Z test and Z write like on game start and you never turn it off, when you turn it off for the sun, that will mean that it will stay off, and you can end up with a situation where you suddenly see the world rendering inside out, because after the first frame has been drawn and depth testing has been turned off, then you're not gonna ever turn it back on, and you'll end up with this. It's probably not what most people want to see in their games, so we're just gonna go and uncomment that. I just thought I would draw attention to that. This is a really old project that this demo was built on, and it actually didn't do that correctly. So I thought it was worth pointing out. Anything else? I think that's really it.
Hey.
So I'm going to end this off here. My name is Michael. I like Wizards and Dragons and making games. If you want the code for this, look for the GitHub repository down in the description of the video. I like to post videos on weird stuff you can do in GameMaker, so if you like any 3D stuff like this, feel free to subscribe. This one was pretty simple. Some of them are a lot more complicated. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places. You should all go check out Wizarducks and the Lost Hat, which is one of the games that I like to work on when I'm not doing YouTube stuff. Link to the Steam page can be found down below. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Zenjamin, Squarecrow, Spy Die Games, Pixelated Pope, Manta Ray, GameMaker, Game Art Indie, Edward Holt, DJ Gibbles, and Bokeh Dev for supporting these videos. If you want to contribute to the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.